Where is the best place to invest savings for retirement? I've been asked this question thousands of times. In this episode, I'm going to show you why traditional IRAs and 401ks may have been a good way to go, but a far cry from the best way to go. Roths may be better than traditional IRAs or 401ks, but I've never owned an IRA or 401k, and I never will. I've never owned a Roth IRA or 401k, and I never will. Why would I do that when my favorite vehicle, a property structured max funded IUL, knocks the socks off of IRAs or 401ks or any Roths? Roths have only two basic benefits. Max funded IUL has those two benefits, and they've had them for much longer than Roths have been around, plus four additional benefits that Roths will never have. So get ready. I'm going to show you how to best save for your retirement so you will not outlive your money. So I'm Doug Andrew. I've been a financial strategist and retirement planning specialist now for more than 5 decades, helping thousands of Americans optimize their assets, minimize taxes, and empower what I call their true or authentic wealth. Now, my favorite financial vehicle, if you watch very many episodes on this channel, is a properly structured, max-funded IUL. It stands for Index Universal Life. In fact, metaphorically, I compare it to a financial Swiss Army knife because it has so many different uses. It is actually the dream solution for many financial goals. Most people have come to me because they want to save for retirement, and they're beginning to realize they're not going to be in a lower tax bracket when they retire. And they know that Wall Street was not designed to create predictable cash flow or income, because you can lose money and you don't want to have to sit there and stop and start retirement income based upon what the market's doing. And so they come for retirement planning, okay? So we have many people that come to us in their 50s. Let's say a 50 or 55-year-old comes and they'll say, Doug, we realize we're not going to be in a lower tax bracket when we retire because we're savers. We want to sock away $2,000 a month from now until age 67, another 12 years. Now, $2,000 a month is $24,000 a year. And I timed that by 11 years because I only have to times it by 11 years so that if they want to continue to put in $2,000 a month or $24,000 a year for 12, 13, 15, 20 years, I only have to calculate the first 11 years under the IRS guideline, so they'll be grandfathered to do that. You can learn why on this channel. So I'll set up a plan to accommodate $2,000 a month, but I'm taking the least amount of insurance I can get away with and putting in this amount of money that they want to reposition to retire, let's say, in 12 years and have the highest net internal rate of return. Okay. So the three biggest dangers that cause most retirees to outlive their money is taxes, inflation, and market volatility. So what I do by using max-funded IUL is I make people immune from those three dangers. I eliminate those dangers by helping them seize three opportunities. We're going to, number one, convert to tax-free growth and access. That's accomplished with IUL. Now, it doesn't matter what taxes go up to because you're immune. It doesn't affect you. Number two, you can't believe how many advisors don't understand how to do this. I'm going to link your returns to the things that inflate. I don't like inflation any more than anybody, but it doesn't hurt me, it helps me. I've always been able to outpace inflation by linking my returns to the things that inflate, okay? And number three is indexing. I'm not talking about index mutual funds. Indexing is a strategy. If you had money in an index mutual fund, let's say the S&P 500, during the Great Recession, you would have lost 40% twice. By using indexing, our clients did not lose a dime in 2001 to 2003, nor 2008. And they came through the Great Recession doubling and tripling their money tax-free. Indexing is a strategy where you're able to participate when the market is going up. But when the market goes down and crashes, you do not lose. You may not make much of anything, but you don't lose, okay? Now, the three greatest strengths of a property structured IUL is number one, liquidity. The ability to access your money when you need it. Number two is safety, not only of the institution, but safety of principal. That whatever I set aside, I don't want to lose, but any year that I make money, I want that to become newly protected principal. I don't want to lose in future years money I made in previous years. Most advisors who manage your money in the market, they don't know how to do that, okay? They can't do that. The third is to earn a predictable rate of return that historically has outpaced or beaten inflation. These are the key elements of a prudent investment, but this is the right order. Too many advisors go after rate of return and you give up liquidity. You're going to have to pay tax or incur a 10% penalty if you touch the money in this IRA. You don't get safety of principal. This is the proper order of the key elements of a prudent investment. Okay, so let's review these quickly. Danger number one that causes most retirees to outlive their money is taxes, and they affect everybody, okay? Too many Americans are like this ostrich with its head in the sand, and it's open season with the IRS, especially during their golden years. And so I often would invite people to come at retirement, because at retirement planning is something totally different than maybe what you did for retirement. And I would tell them to bring their after-tax IRA 401k statements with them. Now, I knew they didn't have them, but I wanted them to think about what I was asking. And then I said, well, I'll calculate the after-tax value. And they were flabbergasted when their $1 million IRA or 401k was really only worth about $600,000 or $700,000 after the government takes their portion of it. And so it looks like this unappetizing sandwich on the right after Uncle Sam comes in, because basically Uncle Sam has a permanent tax lien on your IRAs or 401ks. It's the best savings bond they ever came up with for themselves. They're just using you to invest in their future revenue, okay? So I usually would ask people, were you planning your retirement or Uncle Sam's when you did this? Now, I teach advanced continuing education to CPAs and tax attorneys. I've taught over 5,000 of the nation's top advisors, and it's amazing how many of them come to learn some sections of the code I'll show you here in a moment, because they didn't have to learn these to get their LLM degree, a master's in taxation, or to get their CPA. And so they go, oh my heavens, I've been advising my clients wrong for years. I've been telling them to put money in an IRA or 401k. I can't go back with egg on my face and tell them I advised them wrong. I go, well, you could go back and tell them you learned about something better, because if you don't, somebody else will. And they would often say, well, Doug, we don't have time to educate people like you do. What the public doesn't know won't hurt them. Yes, it will. And so I would recommend that CPAs and tax attorneys contact their clients and teach them what's far better than an IRA or 401k or a Roth IRA or 401k. You know, in the Great Recession, 2000 to 2012, for the second time in a decade in 2008, people lost up to 40% in the value of their IRAs or 401ks. It took 4 years to come back to break even by 2012. And so in 2009, Time magazine put out this cover story, why it's time to retire the 401k and what you can do instead. Now, Stephen Gandel was the author of this article. He actually said the 401k is a lousy idea, a financial flop, a rotten repository for our retirement reserves. He was criticizing 401ks because so many Americans didn't know what they were doing, and they had it invested in the market, and they lost up to 40% twice, and they kept putting it off retirement because Wall Street was never designed to create predictable cash flow. And he said they weren't ever educated on that. Well, that's the third reason why I haven't been a proponent of 401ks. The first reason is you're not going to be in a lower tax bracket when you retire if you're a saver. That's been the premise for years. Defer in an IRA or 401k because you're likely going to be in a lower tax bracket when you retire. That has not been true or axiomatic now for more than 30 years. Savers are in as higher tax brackets when they retire than they ever were in during their earning years. Why? Because they've been going down the highway with one foot on the gas pedal and the other foot on the brake pedal, and they didn't know they were doing it. They're putting money in these tax-deferred IRAs or 401ks, and simultaneously the other foot was on the brake. They pay off their house and got rid of that deduction. Their kids are gone when they retire. If they move back in as adults, you can't deduct them anymore. You don't have those deductions. If you're a business owner and you sold your business, you don't have those deductions. You're not contributing money to IRAs or 401ks anymore, so you don't have those deductions. And Congress keeps raising taxes. So most Americans believe that taxes in the future will likely be higher. And when they agree, I say, then why are you continuing to postpone, defer, procrastinate? paying tax to some future perceived unknown advantage and accumulate a nest egg like this and then withdraw your money when you're convinced taxes are going to be higher down the road? That doesn't make sense, okay? So these two things are certain. Money will never be worth more than it is today because of inflation. Number two, your current tax bracket will likely be the lowest bracket you will ever be in, okay? So what should you be doing? If you listen really close to politicians who like to spend, okay, they have all kinds of ways to raise taxes. And so they want to increase income taxes, to reduce the 401k tax benefits for higher income earners, dramatically increase capital gain taxes to double from 20% up to 39.6%, and maybe even do away with the step-up in basis on long-term capital gains. Capital gain taxes, a lot of that is you're being taxed for just inflation. And that's why generally, and this is not a political agenda here, but Republicans keep capital gain taxes usually at 20%, but tax revenuers, they want to just raise taxes and they want to double it up to 40%, okay? Well, Kamala Harris, for example, has wanted to tax unrealized capital gains annually. Whoa! So they want to tax you on your property or your stocks or anything, what they increased in value during the last year. And you have to pay tax on that. Where you're going to get the money if you actually haven't realized it. That's what an unrealized gain is. You haven't realized the gain. You haven't sold it for a profit yet. Well, what happens when the value of the property goes down, which it does, once every 7 years, real estate goes down in value. I can guarantee you they're not going to refund you. They may not tax you that year, but they're not going to refund you what they charged you in previous years when your house went up in value. When it goes down in value, they're not going to refund you, okay? They want to increase the estate tax. What's that? That's the inheritance tax by as much as 50% because tax revenuers love to tax people that are 6 feet under because they can't complain. They want to increase the corporate tax from 21 to 28%. They say they can afford it. That's only 7% more. No, it isn't. If a corporation on every $1,000 of profit was paying $210, and now they have to pay $280, that's $70 more. $70 is 33% more than the $210. $280 is 70% more, 33% more money, $70 than $210. Are you getting it? And they can't just afford it. They have to lay off people, increase the prices of goods and services, and then they call these corporations evil. They only operate on 2 or 3% profit margins, but they say they're evil because they raise prices. Well, they're forcing them to raise the prices, okay? It doesn't do any good to raise the minimum wage here to 15 or 20 or 25 bucks an hour because that increase in wage is all gobbled up at the gas pump and the hamburger stand and when you go to buy eggs. Healthcare initiative, student loan debt forgiveness. This stuff has to come from somewhere. They have to pay for it, okay? Now, when they get back to traditional IRAs or 401ks, deferred taxes just mean increased taxes. You're not saving money by postponing until you're age 72 or 73 and taking RMDs, required minimum distributions. That's not saving tax. That's actually increasing the tax over time, and I can prove it to you mathematically. People are flabbergasted when they see how much tax they're going to pay by taking RMDs out to their LE, life expectancy, their spouses, and then as it transfers down to their kids. And they have to pay tax on it within 10 years. I would rather have tax-free accumulation. So that's why we teach about the 4 phases of retirement planning. We have the contribution phase where we contribute money. It overlaps the accumulation. And then there's the distribution phase when we're going to start taking withdrawals to live on that. And then the transfer phase is usually when we die, we leave behind something that would have sustained us had we lived longer. Now, there's 5 savings alternatives. The first is the worst. If we're running around $1 million dash around a racetrack to have $1 million net, the first is like crawling. This is how most Americans save in banks, credit unions, regular mutual funds. They take after-tax dollars, and they pay tax every year on the interest and dividends and any gains every year. And it's taxed potentially when they die and it's transferred. Tax, 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 tax. 4 red circles, okay? Some people, they take after-tax money and put it into a tax-deferred annuity. But as soon as you start taking income out of that annuity, it's now taxable. LIFO, last in, first out. The interest that you're earning comes out first, and so you got to pay the tax on that. Now, when you look at the traditional IRAs or 401ks, you get a tax break on the seed money, so to speak. If you're a farmer and you have the choice of buying your seed in the springtime that you're going to plant, and you don't have to pay tax on what you pay for the seed, you plant it, you irrigate, you cultivate it, and in the fall you sell your harvest, and now you agree to pay tax on what you sell your harvest for. That's a traditional IRA or 401k. You get a tax break on the seed money, but when you go to harvest the money, it's now taxable. I would prefer to just pay tax on the seed and enjoy the harvest without tax. And people think you must be talking about a Roth. Well, a Roth is a step in the right direction, but as I've said, I've never owned a Roth and I never will. My favorite vehicle, I take after-tax money and I accumulate it tax-free under Section 72E of the Internal Revenue Code. I can access that money tax-free under 7702, and when I die, it blossoms, increases in value, and transfers tax-free under Section 101A. 3 green circles gives me 50% to 3 times more income than a traditional IRA or 401k. And I prove it over and over again on videos on this channel, okay? So I'm jogging with the wind at the back at the end of the race, not at the beginning of the race, with a traditional IRA or 401k. Now, as a tax strategist, I've helped many clients reestablish or resurrect deductions that they'd been killing. That's a whole nother topic, and many times I can achieve 4 green circles. The point is this. At retirement, Americans draw income from 1, 2, 3, or all 4 of these resources. The most common is this purple bucket. This is the investment bucket, money in yet-to-be taxed IRAs or 401ks, usually invested in the market. Again, Wall Street was not designed or created to create predictable cash flow. Okay. Some people own real estate and they're relying on rental income. Some people have Social Security or a school teacher pension. That might be a guaranteed bucket. The most underutilized, but my favorite, is the green bucket. It's the tax-free one. So I want you to learn why you should have 40 to 60% of your income not even show up on the front page of your 1040 tax return. The IRS will know you're receiving it. They know everything, but it's tax-free. And so it necessitates getting money out of the purple bucket down to the green bucket, not rolling over, okay? There's not a rollover from a 401k to an IRA. That's going from the frying pan to the fire and continuing to defer. You're getting the taxes over and done with sooner than later and reposition it into something tax-free from now on. And at the end of the day, you'll get reimbursed for the taxes you incurred while you did the rollout, okay? Now, I recommend no more than 30% of your money should be in IRAs or 401ks when you retire. When people finally get it, most of them don't have anything left in those. They've gotten it down here. Don't rely on any more than 30% of your income coming from your rentals having tenants, because you can have vacancies. Real estate can go down and you can have vacancies. Between 0 to 80% could come from the orange bucket based on your risk tolerance. But I recommend that 40 to 60% of your income not even show up on the front page of your 1040 tax return. Now, people say, well, why is max funded IUL tax-free? In 1986, President Ronald Reagan's second term, from that point forward, there's only 3 types of income Americans pay income tax on. Earned income, salaries and wages, passive income, rental or lease income, and portfolio income, interest, dividends are examples, okay? Now, if you have income that is not one of these 3 types of income, there's nowhere on a 1040 tax return to put it. It's tax-free. It's that simple. Income out of an IUL is not deemed earned passive or portfolio income. It's not even worth auditing. It's been a sacred tax-free cash cow for over a century, okay? The second danger is inflation. Now, I've mentioned I don't like inflation any more than anybody, but it doesn't hurt me. But see, back in the 1980s, after the Carter double-digit inflation years, the government decided they could not afford to pay Social Security recipients the true cost of living increase, the inflation rate. And so they changed the way they calculated inflation. Instead of comparing the same basket of goods and services to the identical basket of goods and services year by year, they changed it from apples to oranges. They could actually compare the price of a 8-ounce filet mignon steak last year to just 8 ounces of hamburger this year and get away with it. And so ever since 1980, the red line here shows the reported inflation and the increase they gave Social Security recipients. The true rate of inflation is between 2 to 3 times that shown in the blue, okay? From the turn of the century, look at the difference. And so when they come out and they say inflation hit 5, it's really been more like 12 to 15. When they said inflation was 9, I go, it's been more like 25, 27. So if you use rule of 72 math, you take the inflation rate and divide that into 72, and it tells you at 5% inflation, the cost of living will double every 15 years. Well, the true rate of inflation is between 7 to 12%. The cost of living is going to double in the next 6 to 10 years. At 15% inflation, it doubles in 4.8 years. You need to outdo that, and that's why we use diversified indexed universal life. This is an example of an annual statement of an actual client who allocated 20% of their money into one of 5 different indexing strategies. And that year they got credited 14.89 on 20% of their money, 10.25 on another 20%, 15.07, 8%, 13%. You add all those up and divide by 5, and they averaged over 10%, which exceeded the inflation rate at the time because they are linking their returns to the things that inflate. Third is market volatility. During the Great Recession from November of 1999 to November of 2012, if a person had spent their lifetime accumulating $1 million nest egg in the market, in the S&P, they watched that $1 million nest egg dwindle down to $600,000 or $700,000 after the 9/11 terrorist attacks, 2001 to 2003. Okay, then it took 4 years to come back to break even. During that time period, our clients did not lose one dime due to that market crash. They may not have made very much. They didn't make anything in 2001, but they didn't lose. In 2002 and 2003, they actually made 5% tax-free each of those 2 years. And then in 2008, Americans lost 40% again for the second time in a decade due to the mortgage meltdown. Our clients didn't lose a dime. They were cheering. Go, go. They were earning 5% during then because we saw the writing on the wall in 2007. And so they were clear up here. At the end of this Great Recession, a person with $1 million in the market had, if they were lucky, $1,046,800. That wasn't even keeping up with inflation. Our clients with IUL, their million was worth 2.5 to 3 million at the end of that same time period. Okay, so if you look at this pathetic rate of return, it's like the equivalent of 1/3 of 1% interest compounded annually. That's unacceptable to me. I began in 1974. If we started with $500,000 in the market, in the S&P, clear back in 1975, the year after I started as a financial strategist, $500,000 in the market, shown here in the red, you would have made money. And I have advisors go, why? Would you want to give up this tremendous upswing in the 90s? Because I don't want to participate in the tremendous downturn that happened right after the turn of the century. Well, look, you missed out on this upturn again. Well, yeah, but I missed out on the downturn in 2008. Mathematically, if you had your money, $500,000 invested in 1975, that $500,000 through this roller coaster ride, it would have ended up being worth $5.6 million. You know, most clients didn't have that much money because when the market crashed, they sold low and they waited and bought high. They only averaged about 3.5% return on their money, which is what precipitates the 4% rule in the financial services industry. IUL, you would have had 8 million. So it's this simple. You could go through the heartburn of a roller coaster ride to end up with 5.6 million. If you could stomach the downturns, that's not all your money. 1/3 of it belongs to the government in taxes. You would net 3.8. Or you don't have any heartburn when the market crashes. You may not make anything, but you don't lose, and end up with 8 million tax-free. What would you rather have, hamburger A or hamburger B? It's that simple. Why is it tax-free? In these 3 sections of the Internal Revenue Code, for over a century, money accumulates tax-free under Section 72E in a max-funded universal life insurance contract. Index universal life is my favorite. You can access that money income tax-free under Section 7702, and when you ultimately die, anything left behind transfers income tax-free and usually blossoms, increases in value. Nothing else does that in the Internal Revenue Code. But you have to comply with 3 tax citations, TEFRA, DEFRA, and TAMRA. You can learn about these on this channel and by claiming a copy of my book that I want to gift you here in just a moment. This is the Tax Equity Fiscal Responsibility Act of 1982, the Deficit Reduction Act of 1984. If you comply with those, okay, you can accumulate your money tax-free no matter how old you are, and you can earn, by diversifying, like I have, 11 and net 10% cash on cash, net internal rate of return. TAMRA, the Technical Miscellaneous Revenue Act of 1988, says you cannot fund it in one fell swoop. You have to spread it out. This was basically demanded by the banks and the brokerage firms because they couldn't compete with these. These are tax-free. You can access your money tax-free. And when you die, they blossom and transfer tax-free. You don't lose when the market goes down. They can't compete. But they wanted to slow the flow, and so they passed TAMRA. So metaphorically, I've always used a bucket to compare this. You're designing an IUL, an Indexed Universal Life. Instead of trying to get the most insurance you can get for the least premium for death, you're going to use this for life, for living benefits. If I had a 60-year-old that wanted to reposition $500,000, I could get by with only about $1 million of death benefit. And when they get that $500,000 in there, maybe $125,000 the first year, and then the first day of the second year, they can fill it up to 40 to 50% full. And by 3 years or 4 years in one day, it's 100% full. That $500,000 now, the cost of insurance is half of what it was 4 or 5 years earlier, because if you die, they still only pay out $1 million. That's what I want, because I want this to be part of the death benefit, because I'm self-insuring. The cost of insurance is only the net between my cash and the original death benefit. This $500,000 for many of my clients has doubled in 7.5 years. When this doubles to $1 million, this spigot on the bucket, the cost of the insurance that the IRS says has to be there for it to be tax-free, is basically covered. The cost of insurance, I'm self-insured. My cash value has grown to equal and exceed the death benefit. Have you ever seen an insurance policy that gets cheaper as you get older, to where pretty soon it costs nothing because you're self-insured? You need to learn how to do this, because this is the key, that when you have $1 million of cash in there, that can generate $100,000 a year of tax-free income from age 65 to age 120 without running out of money. Okay? What's indexing? If you had $1 million of cash value, it's sitting in the insurance company earning the general account portfolio rate based upon the insurance company's earnings on loans on skyscrapers and shopping malls, a little bit of stocks, but mostly AAA and AA bonds. I've usually had a return between 4 to 15.5%. Let's use the lowest of 4%. If you feel bearish about America any given year, you can just settle for that, okay? And that's what our clients settled for in 2002 and 2003 and in 2008. They didn't earn zero. They earned 5% back then. So you could settle for $40,000 in 2008 when banks were paying less than 1%. But if you feel bullish about America, you think the economy is going to go up, here's the key. In Index Universal Life, your $1 million has to stay safe in the insurance company. They're not investing that in the market. That $1 million stays safe and it keeps earning, let's say, 4. You're giving up the for sure 4%. And you're telling the insurance company you can use the interest on my $1 million, $40,000 this year, to fund an options budget to buy upside options in the index or indexes that I choose. This allows the insurance company the wherewithal to be able to pay you $80,000 if the market goes up 8, or $120,000 in interest if it goes up 12, because 40,000 of options will triple to 120 grand. Okay, people say, how can they afford to do that? They know what they're doing. They're the number one purchaser of options in the world. But if the market tanks, you guess wrong, and the market crashes, you don't lose one dime of your $1 million. You simply gave up the 4% on your $1 million. Now, I'll do that all day long. But there are sometimes opportunities where you even switch strategies to maybe a threshold strategy where they don't cap how much you can earn. They uncap it, but they may subtract a threshold charge, let's say of 5%. This is what some of our clients were advised to do by my sons in March of 2020 during the COVID-19 downturn. The market dropped 30% in March of 2020. Our sons contacted 800 of their IUL clients and said, Link, to a 1-year point-to-point with no cap. This client linked 852,000 in March of 2020. The market went up 66.33% the next year. Minus 5, he got credited 61.33% in 1 year. The 852,000 grew to 1,387,000. He made $535,000 in 1 year tax-free. Now here's the key. The next year, if the market would have crashed 40%, he would not have lost one dime of the $500,000 he made the year before. Okay? His account value would have stayed at 1,387,000 if the market crashed the next year. The long and short of this is I'm not a doomsdayer, but I am a realist. I believe we're headed for many more recessions. It's not a matter of if, it's when. And so if this USS economy ship sinks, unfortunately, too many of our congressional revenuers are rearranging deck chairs on a sinking Titanic, thinking that they can spend their way out of a recession every time. It's simple economics. If your outgo exceeds your income, your upkeep will become your downfall. And so, unfortunately, too many politicians have never even run a candy store before. They don't understand economics. What I want to do is help you board a lifeboat so that if we have the next crash, you'll stay afloat. I want you to stay afloat, and that's the strategies on this channel. But a 401k is not the cat's meow we thought it was. Uncle Sam is having to take a bigger and bigger piece of the American taxpayers' pie. And unfortunately, so many people are going to be left in the dust. So what I want you to do is learn about this. I want you to claim a copy of my book, The Laser Fund. It's 300 pages, packed with charts and graphs and explanations on the left brain side, 14 chapters. If you're a right brain learner, you learn more by stories. You just flip it over to this book. This is about 100 pages, 12 chapters with 62 actual client stories of how a property structure max funded IUL is the dream solution for all kinds of financial goals, not just retirement, okay? And now, if you want to use your whole brain, I recommend you read both of these books, okay? Now, you can buy it on Amazon for anywhere from $20 to $60. If you do, thank you, but I'll give you a copy free. To claim your free copy, simply click on the link below or go to laserfund.com. You contribute a nominal amount towards the shipping and handling. I'll cover the rest of that. I require a little bit of skin in the game. But when you're in there claiming your free copy, I'm going to fire a hard copy out to you via priority mail. But when you're claiming your free copy, if you like to listen and learn or watch and learn, there's options there for that. But you can register for a free educational webinar that we do on a weekly basis. You can even schedule an appointment right there when you're claiming your free copy to talk to an IUL specialist for a quick consultation to see how a property structure max funded IUL may work in your particular set of circumstances with your numbers. I can assure you, you're going to want to make sure it's done right. So this is not about me. This is about you and your brighter future and how you can not outlive your money and eliminate those dangers of taxes, inflation, and market volatility.